I mean, obviously we're a few episodes into the season. A lot has happened so far, but what has it been like for you watching it back so far?
Oh my gosh. It's always hard to watch myself. I've never really liked watching myself. I have all these quirky mannerisms and things like that. And then, oh my gosh, if I'm having like a bad day or something like that, and they catch it on camera. Unfortunately, that's what you get. I think there's a lot of times that I love our episodes. And certainly last Sunday with the whole toilet paper thing was hilarious. So I think there's certainly times that I really, really like. And overall, I love the message of our show. So watching it, I don't know, it's hard to relive things 4 times, because we watch it and then we get asked about it. And it seems like we have to watch it so many times. And so I don't always want to relive everything. But I think the overall message of our show is really great because it just shows family.
Definitely. That is so funny when you're doing press and have to watch the show. It's like you're reliving the same like 3 or 4 months over and over and over again.
Yes. It's never something that you really, and it just depends. I guess there's a lot of good things, that you get to live over again. And certainly it's really been a lot of fun watching the kids grow up. That's been a blast.
Oh yeah.
It's been so much fun. I've loved that part of it too.
And obviously the next couple episodes, we kind of really see quarantine and COVID really kind of ramp up for you guys. And obviously nobody wants to relive this past year, but how difficult was that for you in the beginning in trying to navigate all the different families and how to kind of split time and be safe during all of this as well?
It was tough. The whole COVID thing I know was super hard on everybody. The isolation was really difficult for so many people. And I just tried to stay positive as possible. But my kids, having them, it was so hard on my kids, like Gwendolyn with her last year in school. That was super difficult because how depressing was that for so many seniors, that was so difficult. And then the whole social aspect of the kids, it's just been super hard just watching them with it. But I mean, it's so tough because on the other hand, we live in with a place where we can go outside and we're blessed to have a wonderful environment here. We took up kayaking really, really soon because it's perfect for social distancing because you're so far from everybody. So we took up kayaking. We took up things that we could do with just us to make it so at least we were doing something, a couple times a week. We would go hiking or things like that until they had to shut everything down because there were so many people on the trails. But we just did our best, and I just did my best to make it as positive as possible. And we still just try and make it as positive as possible for my kids.
You have to, yeah.
Otherwise you get stuck in, I don't know what, and I didn't want them to get depressed or lonely because that's been astronomical. I just didn't want my kids to get sad. I didn't want them to get depressed. I wanted them to just stay as positive as possible because I think COVID's hard. I think the disease is hard and stuff. I think it's secondary to everything else that's happening with COVID.
Totally. I couldn't agree with you more. I know I spoke to Janelle recently and she said the longest that she went without seeing Cody was 5 weeks during the beginning of this because she didn't want, because of the kids were out and about. I mean, how long did you go and did this test your relationship at all?
There was a couple of times where it was a long period of time and it was, it happens later in the year, so I don't know how much I can talk on that. I'm trying to remember the episodes.
I'm sure they all blend together.
It all blends together, but then everything that happens is a little bit after it happens for us in real life. So at the very beginning, it was like a 6-week kind of a separation. And I knew as soon as I would go out of town, I have kids that live out of town. So I would go see them. And I knew that when I chose to go see them, that what it meant was when we got back, we would have to stay quarantined from everybody. But it was a choice I was willing to make because I have to make sure that my kids are okay. And Aspen and Mitch and McKelty and Tony and Peyton, I needed to visit them too. So I just had to choose my kids, and to see them and spend time with them. And, Cody's he'll be fine. He's a big boy. He's all right. It's just important for me to spend time with my kids too. So it was a tough decision to make, but in the end, I'm glad we did what we did because I had more still had some great memories that were made, and we were so careful. Like, we would travel, but we would mostly stay in our car. We would do grocery pickup. Like, once we got to my kids' house, we wouldn't leave, and they would be super careful before we got there too. So we were as smart as we could be, while still maintaining, some sort of an up close relationship.
Right. So it's almost a good thing that you all weren't living together under the same roof, because you kind of wouldn't have been able to make it work.
No, well, if that were the case, like if we were all under one roof or one house or whatever like that, then I wouldn't have traveled and I wouldn't have done that. Because the last thing I want to do is put anybody at risk over this whole thing. So I would have been a lot more careful, would have done a whole different thing. So yeah, you're right. I mean, we took advantage of the great outdoors and the best we could.
Yeah. This season, when I spoke to Kody a couple of weeks back, he did say that it felt like the 5 of you at times were living separate lives. Did you feel like that over the course of this season too? And was COVID a big factor in that as well?
I do feel like there were a lot of times we lived separate, because Kody said at the very beginning, he's like, you guys just need to do what you need to do. And we all did. I certainly did. And I do feel like that we did a lot of things separate. Even the birthdays were separate. So many things were separate. And it was difficult. It has been a really difficult thing doing everything separate. It has felt like, 4 separate families for sure.
Yeah. Do you still feel like that?
A little less now, because they have rapid testing.
Right.
So if we do something, we come back and we take like our COVID test, and then we'll be safe to hang out with everybody. But even then, we're still super, super careful. Like, we got together. I don't know if I can talk about, once again, I'm not quite sure what I can say. But we have gotten together a little bit more, but we still don't that much, just because there's a lot of moving pieces. And in fact, do we touch on this? I think we may touch on this, but like at one point, okay, case in point, here you go. So truly had to go to see the dentist. It was just time, a lot of appointments you can wait for, but like the dentist appointment's not going to happen. So of course we were super careful, and you get there and they all have masks on, and of course right now I have something in my eyeball. I don't know how that happens, but oh well. So we get there and everything's fine. Everyone's wearing a mask, and we're talking. I'm like, yeah, I couldn't bring her until now because COVID, blah, blah, blah. Well, that night, I get a phone call from the reception, and she's like, we think that the dentist might have COVID. I'm like,
no.
And Kody had been over. So instantly I was like, okay, well, if he had COVID, then we probably have COVID. And I gave it to Kody. And since then he went to another house. So therefore I've infected everybody. So that's the stress of it right there. It's not necessarily me getting COVID. It's me passing it to everybody. So we actually have not done a lot of family gatherings, just because we're being conscientious of our family members, and we don't want to make anybody sick. So we don't do that much still. We're super careful because, oh my gosh, that dentist experience.
It's scary. It really is. It really is.
You never know how far it's going to spread.
Yeah.
What if I give it to Kody, he can spread it super fast. He's like he has the potential of being the main spreader, right? So he's the one we have to keep super, super careful.
Yeah.
So it's not fun. No, but it's not fun for anybody, honestly.
No, definitely. So did you feel like you had to work almost extra hard to maintain not only the relationship with Kody, but the relationship with your other sister wives too?
Yeah, it comes down to quality time, right? And just more like conversations. I think I've talked to Chanel more during COVID than I ever did. Just, phone calls or FaceTime or things like that. But even then, those relationships, it seems like we all knew that we were doing our own thing and stuff like that. But if there was a concern or a problem or whatever, then there's still just always a constant in our lives. And so, the sister wife relationship is just still a constant. So I knew that if I needed anything, there's still just a call away, just like so many other people. But we kept things mainly at like calls or like Zoom calls like this. There was a couple of times where we met out on the property and stuff. But yeah, no, I think that it takes a strain on most relationships when you can't have a face-to-face. It just does. Of course, it takes a strain on relationships,
Yeah. You said, sometimes it's hard to watch things back in episodes. And, in a recent episode, a little bit earlier on, Kody said that you sometimes twist past experiences to make them negative. Did you agree with that? How did you feel about that when he said that?
I know. How could he be so open like that? What the heck? No, I think I do have a tendency to go in my mind, but this is how I feel about the whole situation. So I think that perspective is a crazy, crazy thing. And I think we all have a tendency to look back and see something different than the other person.
Mhm.
And sometimes I can see things negative, but no matter what, I'm always going to see something different than anybody sees it, And so what he deems as dark and negative, maybe is just more truthful, and he's choosing to see it another way himself. I always tell my kids perspective is an amazing thing, and communication's amazing thing. And what you hear and what you say are sometimes very, very different. What the other person receives, what the other person gives, very different. So yeah, I can definitely look back on the past and see dark. But I think we all just have different perspectives on a lot of it.
Totally, definitely. A lot of this season obviously is around Kody and Mary's relationship. And, a lot happens in this upcoming episode. He said that he pretty much quit dating Mary, and he stopped calling her. What was your reaction to that? And were you aware of the depth of the problems that were going on between them?
I think it's been really, really sad watching Mary and Kody's relationship and how it is. And I know that she still has so much hope, and she still is as positive as she can be, and she's super duper strong. And I think she's just doing what she feels like she needs to do for like the whole family and everything. And I think that she's just amazing for that. And every relationship goes through hard times, but it's super heartbreaking to watch. I certainly wish she could have the kind of relationships that she wants to have, and my heart breaks for them. I wish that it was very different, because I think that she really wants something different, So it's been a hard thing to watch, hard thing to witness and be part of, even though you're not part of it, because Kody keeps his relationship separate. And I don't know a lot of ins and outs. A lot of times I know just from watching the show too, because I don't know everything that goes on, and Kody's very private, and I don't go snooping around like that. And sometimes I see things on episodes too where I'm like, oh gosh, just like you watching it, I had no idea, so that it is shocking, right? It's been really hard, and I pray for them, and I do my best to, I don't know what to do though. I feel like my hands are tied somewhat, because he does keep things separate. I just don't know everything. But I just hope for them. I hope that it gets better for her.
That's got to be so hard, because obviously you know her so well, and obviously you're married to Kody. So it's like when these episodes air, it's like, do you want to call her and be like, are you okay? And then it's like, do you talk to him and be like, what's going on?
I try and still respect them, and because it's so hard to sit and watch an episode and see yourself be super, super vulnerable. And sometimes you just want to be like, no, I just need to talk about it, because it was 6 months ago, or whatever. It was a while ago, and I need to move on from it. And always, keep progressing and keep moving forward and stuff. And so I tend to not, after I watch the episodes, I make the kids play games with me, and just shirk it all off. And there's been some episodes where I don't let the kids really watch either, just because no one wants to see their parents going through stuff like that.
Of course.
Yeah, right. And so but I make them play games with me.
Yeah, Janelle said that when the Kody and Mary stuff has been coming on, she's been taking her bathroom breaks during that.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. That's really funny. That's clever. I might have to.
You said that, when you were watching these scenes back, that you were shocked. What was the most shocking part for you to hear?
For me, it's just a bunch of little tiny moments just between the two. I don't know. Do I really? It's just so hard. Yeah, I try and live in a rose-colored world a little bit, and I really try. I'll turn the volume down lower and things like that, just because I don't know. It is difficult. It is hard,
I know. I think for me was when he said that he saw no value in the relationship. That kind of broke my heart a little bit.
Honestly, the whole thing's been kind of sad. I think that, yeah. And it's like not a relationship. So just when you see your friends go through stuff like that, your just heart goes out to them, and you be as upbeat as possible and as real as possible. But it's a super hard thing to watch.
Yeah. Does it affect the rest of the family? Or did it not?
Well, so my younger kids don't know the extent of it, and the older kids might watch the episodes, but I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and so everybody kind of knows, I would assume, but the younger kids, I want them to just live in a little bubble with regards to our show a little bit, you know, because it's hard for them when they see the relationship stuff, and it's a little bit, you know, difficult. It's so hard for them. So I try and shield them from that.
Definitely. And of course, I'm sure you are rooting for them to kind of work through their issues. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Is she in a better place now?
Have you asked Mary yet?
I did. I talked to her, and she did seem like she was very hopeful, and she seemed that, you know, things were going in a better direction.
She's super duper strong. She really honestly is. And I know that she's had some good memories and stuff this past year too. So I don't want to give away too much.
I know. I like wanted, it's like you want to know the ending.
I know, but I don't know what, you know, it's so funny because I don't know exactly where things happen all the time too.
Totally. So, I mean, what was the hardest period that you and Kody, in your opinion, had to go through?
That is such a cute question, Christina. Oh my gosh. And there's been a lot of ups and downs. You know, there's been a lot of ups and downs. And where the thing that I struggle with most is when I feel like I don't have a say, or when I feel like I'm not as important, or things like that. And certainly when, I mean, anytime we've had major decisions, I go through a time where I'm like, does my opinion really even matter here? You know, and that's when we struggle the most, is when I feel like I don't really have a say, or I don't really have an opinion. You know, things are just going so differently than I see them going, with the different moves than we've done. You know, and so that's when it's hardest for me, is I'm kind of like, I'm not really seeing that I'm an equal partner in this whole relationship thing. And that's when it's difficult, is when I don't feel like I have say. I don't like that part.
Yeah. Does that get easier over the years, or is that still something that you constantly struggle with, even though
that's not something that I've ever grown out of? I'm just saying, no, not to me. I think there's ups and downs, and there's different times where things are, and I'd say overall things are steady, but where it still, you know, it still happens.
It still happens. And how do you deal with jealousy issues with the other wives? Does that come up for you as well?
You know, when I am feeling most down about myself, and as in, like, when I feel insecure, that's when I get jealous. And so if I don't care and I want them to have a good relationship, I'm fine. But when I'm less looking at me more and thinking that I'm less than, or doing the evil word of comparing, that's when I get jealous. But once I don't know, there's a saying that Janelle gave it to McKelty forever ago. There was a cute decoration. It was something like, whenever I feel sad, I just tell myself to knock it off, whatever. And I don't, and I can't even remember it. Anyway, I need to obviously get that. But when I feel bad about myself, I can get jealous.
Yeah.
But that's just not a place I like to live in and dwell in. And the thing is Kody has something different with each one of us. It's a different kind of a relationship. And if I want to have a great relationship, the worst thing that I could do is look at how he is with other people, you know, or with his other wives. And that would be deteriorating. So what I just do is look at what I have instead. There's so many things that I'm grateful for. Right. There's so many things that I have. And so I think the opposite of jealousy would be security and gratitude, you know? Definitely. And so I have to have a gratitude journal. I'm just saying, every morning I have to write down things that I'm grateful for, and just be positive and to go about it that way, because I have value and I have worth, and for the most part, I have very important things to say. I'm just saying.
I love it. No, it's so true. I think probably if you compare your relationships, it would be, it's so toxic for you.
Right, it would be toxic for anybody. I can look at any of my girlfriends' relationship with their husbands and be like, oh my gosh, they have like this ideal soulmate, whatever. And I could do that. Everybody can do that all day long. And if all we're going to do is sit there and compare and not focus on the wonderful things that we have in our own life, that's just a recipe for disaster in any situation.
Yeah, totally. Do you ever wish that you were in a monogamous relationship?
Oh gosh, that sounds like a lot of work. A lot of work.
Really?
Yes, especially like during COVID, where we've had more freedom. That's a terrible way to put it. I don't know. I've never been a monogamist. Never. I've never. Never. So I mean, it's so out there and beyond my understanding to have a guy around every night. I feel like it would cramp my style a lot. because I've never had that. As soon as Cody and I married, that was the third wife. And so I I really like the independence that I have, and I love the freedom that I have. And I love that I can just have those evenings where I'm wearing the grossest, most comfortable clothes ever. And I'm just, curled up on the couch with the girls eating popcorn and playing games or something, Yeah. That's I feel bad whenever I say things like that, really bad. But
I wish I had that right now. I wish I could.
yeah.
I wish
So
I could have. What's that?
You're married?
I am, yes.
Well, okay, that's the deal. I don't have a guy around all the time. I have so much freedom. If I'm like, oh my gosh, girls, we've got to go to Sedona for the day, we just go to Sedona for the day. We stay in our car right now, mind you, but we go on these beautiful drives and we have adventures. And oh my gosh, there would always be someone else I'd have to talk to about it. The hard part about the whole thing is that I do have to do repairs myself. If the fridge breaks down, I have to call the appliance guy. Or if something happens, because it's a water haul area, and so I have to have a guy bring water. So when I run out of water, I have to make the call. So I have to do things like that. Like if I need a mechanic or an electrician or things like that, then I have to do that part. And I don't like to do that part really. But I think after a while, you just get used to it.
You just get used to it. I think in the upcoming episode, you say no more kids, that I think you said the womb is closed, right?
Yes.
Did that change over time with COVID, or are you like, I'm done?
No. No, gosh, I'm 48. I'm 48 years old. Can you imagine? I had truly when I was 38, that recovery was so hard. I postpartumed really bad. I had the blues. No, I'm going to have grandkids now. We have McKelty's due to have her baby within a couple of weeks. And so no, I'm focusing on grandkids. Are you kidding me? Oh, it's all about the grandkids at this point.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, you're fine. It's just Evangeline and Axel are like the love of my life. And I need to see them more often. It's just devastating. They live too far from me. I'm just saying.
Yeah. What if Robin and Cody decided to have another baby? Would you be?
Oh, that's great. Yeah. No, I think that we have amazing children. And if they decide to have another child, completely on them. If that's something that they want to do, that's completely fine, whatever.
Definitely. What would you say, a lot of people obviously, I'm sure, have a ton of questions about polygamy. What would you say is probably the biggest misconception about polygamous relationships? Probably a loaded question.
I don't know, as long as people know that I chose to, I think choice is a big thing that it comes down to. I feel like people need to know the Mormon Church does not practice polygamy. I don't think that's said enough.
Yeah.
The Mormons actually don't practice polygamy. It's just a choice. It's we had a choice that we made, and we chose to marry who. I say choice a lot. I don't know. I can't think of anything. Think about the questions that I get asked from people. Jealousy is always a big one that people ask, but it's like, well, gosh, I'll just be grateful for what I have, and it doesn't seem to bother me.
I know a lot of people had questions, like when I recently spoke to Cody, he said that he would never leave any of the wives, that he would never file for divorce, but if you wanted to, you could leave. I mean, is that like a rule, or not a rule, or is that like one of maybe the misconceptions that families can't split up?
Yeah, no, it's like no one wants to have a separation or a divorce, but no, Cody's make it completely clear. If you're not happy here and you don't want to stay, then you don't have to stay. You can move on. And I think it's a lot of moving pieces and stuff, and it's something to work out. But yeah, no, that is a misconception. I don't have to stay. I can leave. If things aren't working out, I can leave. Yeah,
definitely. And, I think a topic of conversation came up in the past couple of weeks about the basement wife and the...
That was such a hard conversation. It's like there were so many things about when we lived all in one house that I just didn't like, and I just was so frustrated about. And it took me like a year or more to voice that and to really be like, why in the world did this bother me so bad? And it's like, no one put me in the basement. No one did. I chose it. I was like, no, if someone's got to live there, and I'm fine. I don't mind. And then I don't know, sometimes in my darkest most, this is one of the times where I can look back and go dark. Really, you're welcome. Right. And no, there were times where I felt like a basement wife, or I felt less than, or things like that. And that's just never a feeling that I want to feel. not that was tough, but there isn't always a basement wife. Wives live in the basement all the time and they're fine. Like I have a sister who lives in the basement and she's not a basement wife. And basically she's just, that's just happens to be where she lives and she's 100% fine with it. Yeah. So I think it's just in my dark days or in my frustrations, I would just look back and be like,
totally. I mean, do you all feel like you are a queen wife then? Does he all feel like that?
Yes. I hope that everyone feels like that. I feel like that. Absolutely. And when I don't, it's not a happy day at all.
Definitely.